Well, good morning, Ransom Church. I'm so excited you guys are here for Fall Launch Sunday. If you do not know me, my name is Josie. I get to serve here at Ransom as our Ransom Teens pastor. And thank you for that. Before we get started, I actually want to just invite all the parents in the room to something we are calling Parent Workshop. The Ransom Church Family Ministry team has been researching, has been studying, and wants to just help equip the parents in this room to talk about mental health with their kids. So Saturday, September 20th, we would love to see you there. You can scan that QR code to get registered just to find out more information. Now, I want to start here with us addressing the obvious. Because if you know me, you know I'm not a parent. And if you've been to Ransom at all, you know we have a wonderful teaching team, all of whom are parents. Yet in our parenthood series, here I am. And to just give myself like a tiny bit of credit, I do have a 3-year-old golden doodle. His name is Moose. He is adorable. He is a monster. He doesn't listen for some reason. I don't know what that's about. And so I kind of get it, right? Just like your toddler, just the same. I have to feed him. All jokes aside, I'm not up here to pretend that I have all the parenting advice in the world, because I know I don't. But I do have this unique seat. You see, I work with parents weekly. I help equip parents. I cheer our parents on, but I also spend a lot of time with your kids, whether they're in the babies in the nursery or high schoolers about to graduate. I get to spend time and see your kids basically every single week. And here's something I've noticed, not just with parents in the room, not just with students, but really with everyone, no matter where you find yourself in this season of life. We are busier than ever before. I have this core memory from when I was working as a resident here at Ransom, so I was working about 29 hours, but I was also serving tables close to 40 hours a week. I was also in school. I was also trying to have a social life. And one day I get to work and I'm just like, man, I'm exhausted. I have so much going on, and I'm sure I was just complaining about how busy my life was. And then a parent here on staff was like, oh, I get that. Like, I relate to that. My life is busy also. And she walks me through her previous evening. After 8 hours of work, she gets off work, she goes directly to after-school pickup, goes to pick up a kiddo from school in one location to a completely different location right after that because of an after-school activity. And then as soon as he gets dropped off and he's ready to go, then she has to go to a different school for a different kid to be there and help support this activity. And then she's there for maybe an hour or so, and then she goes back to the other student's practice, picks up that kiddo, and as they're traveling back to this other school, they're like, oh no, we need to eat. So they stop and they get food real quick and they make sure that everyone is eating, and then they go back to this other school activity and they're there and they're being supportive. And then 7 o'clock rolls around or so, and oh my gosh, no, we have bedtime. We need to get home. We have to get to bed and get ready for the next day. So they go home, they do bedtime just to wind up at a completely different location for another student activity. Every single one of us is busy. But I really feel like parents, you're a bit busier than the rest. And being busy isn't necessarily bad. It's not a bad thing at all. I feel like Jesus himself had seasons where he was busy. But here is what I keep coming back to. When Jesus had so much going on, how did he keep himself from getting pulled into the hurry? Because here's the difference. Busyness is how much you have going on. Busyness can be a natural part of life, filled with meaningful activities, with really good relationships and responsibilities. But sometimes we just need to slow down. Sometimes we just have way too much going on, whether you're a parent in the room or a student in the room. Sometimes we have way too much going on, and we need to pause. We need to reevaluate what is most important, and we need to cut some stuff out of our life. That's busyness. But hurry is how you move through what you have going on. Hurry is a state of mind that rushes us through these activities, often leading to a lot of stress and a lack of presence. Hurry is sneaky. It seeps into our lives so quietly we hardly notice it's there. Right? One morning we wake up, we're feeling good. We find time to pray and read our Bible in the morning. And then we do the rest of whatever our morning routine looks like to get in the car, drive to work or drive to school drop off, and bam, while listening to worship music, we're yelling at the car in front of us because they waited an extra 3 seconds at the turn signal. And now I'm going to be a few minutes late because I have to wait for this light to turn green again. And I'm sure I'm not the only one who has found myself there. In the past decade, doctors, psychologists, even mental health professionals all agree that we are moving way too fast. We're doing way too much, and it's dramatically affecting how we feel. So much so they've given this ideal a name. They call it hurry sickness. And this is a behavior pattern or a mental state where you constantly feel rushed. You're anxious about time, and you're driven to move faster and faster, often at the expense of your health, relationships, and well-being. In the book Ruthless Elimination of Hurry, John Mark Comer actually lays out 10 symptoms of hurry sickness. And this morning, I just want us to walk through those and take a personal inventory. How many of these do you relate to? How many of these do you see in your own life? The first one being irritability. The little things kind of set you off. Or hypersensitivity. Small things hit really, really hard. Restlessness. Workaholism, just non-stop activity. Emotional numbness. You don't have time to deal with your own feelings, let alone anyone else's. Out of order priorities. A lack of care for your body. Escapist behavior, right? Doom scrolling. Finally sitting down and wanting to shut everything out. Slippage of spiritual disciplines. And 10, one that I think we struggle with more than we want to acknowledge, isolation. However many of those you can relate to, I promise you're not alone. Hurry has taken over our lives. Without even realizing it, we're slowly losing connection to God and to others in our life. We want to think this is a modern problem, right? Smartphones, more traffic, we have extra booked digital calendars. But hurry sickness existed long before iPhones and minivans. In fact, there's a moment in Scripture that could have been ripped straight from our daily lives. Today we're going to be in Luke 10, verses 38 through 42. You can find that in one of our Bibles on page 624. If you don't have a Bible, feel free to raise your hand. Ushers are coming down the aisles and they will give you one. Please keep it. That is our gift to you. In Luke 10, Luke, the author, gives us a glimpse into a dinner table moment. And in this moment, it reveals two very different ways of living. One consumed by hurry, and the other anchored in presence. And as we look into this scripture today, I hope we will find truth that not only relates to our relationship with Jesus, but for all the parents in the room, all the future parents in the room, I hope you can find it relate to your relationship with your kids. Starting in verse 38, as Jesus and the disciples continued on their way to Jerusalem, they came to a certain village where a woman named Martha welcomed him into her home. We're going to pause real quick, one verse in. At this moment, as Jesus is traveling to Jerusalem, he's literally traveling to the cross. He stops at Martha's home. Just a chapter before that in Luke 9, it actually says, as the time drew near for him to ascend to heaven, Jesus resolutely set out for Jerusalem. Jesus was heading to Jerusalem. He knew what was coming. He was making his way there. And we might not say that Jesus was physically in a hurry, but mentally, how easy it could have been for him to slip into a hurry mindset, to be distant and distracted at this moment, having every single reason to not want to stop for dinner at a friend's house. But the beautiful thing about Jesus, he was interruptible. With everything he had going on, he stops, he goes over for dinner, and most importantly, he is not only there physically, but mentally. C.S. Lewis said, how you respond to interruptions shows who you really are. Ouch. I know how I tend to respond. When I have a plan and it doesn't work out, or I'm in the middle of writing a message for our teens and then someone just needs me to take off my headphones because they need to ask me a question right now, I don't always respond the best. How do you respond? Because truth number one, we need to embrace interruptions as opportunities. Jesus never treated an interruption as an inconvenience. Often they were the very moments that God moved the most. Think about Mark 5, where Jesus was going to help a dying girl, but he stopped for the woman who touched his cloak. Or Mark 10, where the disciples tried to keep the children away because Jesus was just too busy. But Jesus said, "Let the little children come to me." That's the heart of God. What feels like an interruption in your day may actually be a divine appointment. The text from a friend who you haven't seen in a minute, the neighbor who stops to chat, the coworker who walks in while you're just really, really busy. What if those weren't accidents? Proverbs 16:9 says, "In their hearts, humans plan their course, but the Lord establishes their steps." Slow down enough to see that God might be at work in the moments you didn't plan for. And parents, this is where it gets even more real in your homes. Those interruptions you hear all the time. "Mom, watch this. Dad, can you help me with this?" They might feel small, but they may be the biggest moments in your children's lives. Because when you stop and you give them your attention, you're showing them that they matter. You're showing them that they're loved. But even more than that, you're giving them a glimpse of how God himself responds to us when we come to him. So after that long day, when you finally sit down on the couch and you hear that little voice calling your name, the question is, how will you respond? What feels like a disruption may actually be the perfect time for discipleship. Your patience in that moment may be the clearest picture of Jesus your kids will see all week. Verse 39, her sister, Mary, sat at the Lord's feet listening to what he taught, but Martha was distracted. By the big dinner she was preparing, she came to Jesus and said, "Lord, doesn't it seem unfair to you that my sister sits while I'm doing all this work? Come and tell her to help me." First of all, parents in the room, how real is that complaint? I know as a kid, I said that, "Mom, it's so unfair. I'm literally doing everything and my sister's just over there on her phone." Or, "Dad, it's so unfair. I literally do everything in this house and you get home from work and just sit down." To all the kids in the room, I think if you were honest, you've said something like that. But, bright side, you're quoting the Bible and you didn't even realize it. Martha was distracted. Jesus was in her home. He was right there. She was distracted. In the original Greek, that word means to be pulled in different directions or overoccupied. Right? Luke isn't just saying Martha was busy. He's saying her attention was yanked in multiple different directions, pulled away from the one thing right in front of her. It's this image of a tug-of-war happening inside your mind and your heart. Every part of Martha knew she had to make the most of Jesus being in her home, but she was so unsure how to make the most of it. She was distracted. She wasn't steady. There was no purposeful activity there. She was distracted, almost like an internal splintering. Do you feel that internal splintering, being pulled in so many different directions? You would just love a moment of peace and stillness. I think truth number 2 for us this morning: distraction splinters, devotion centers. This internal splintering or hurry doesn't just show up as chaos, right? It almost shows up like normal life. Somewhere along the way, we lose our peace. And you can live in a busy season and still carry peace, right? You can live in a busy season and still carry peace. But you can't live a hurried lifestyle and keep it. Hurry steals peace every time. Psalm 46:10 reminds us to be still and know that I am God, right? If hurry is your drug, rest will feel like stress. Because when you've lived in the sprint long enough, stillness feels wrong. But stillness isn't laziness. It's the place where God pulls your heart back together. Devotion centers. It steadies us. It roots you in his presence when everything else is tugging at you to look a different way. Parents, I think it's so important to note here that Martha wasn't distracted by bad things, right? She was serving, she was hosting, she was doing something good with her time. But in chasing all that good, she missed what was best. And that happens to us too, right? Practice, lessons, school events, even church things, they're all good. But if the schedule steals your peace, your family ends up living splintered. In my opinion, I think our kids will often take on the pace you live at. If your life is splintered and hurried, they will learn to live that way too. But if you allow Jesus to center you, they get to experience the kind of home where peace isn't the exception, it's the atmosphere. Your devotion to Christ doesn't just steady you, it has the power to steady your family. So how does Jesus respond to Martha? But the Lord said to her, "My dear Martha, you are worried and upset over all these details. There is only one thing worth being concerned about. Mary has discovered it, and it will not be taken away from her." Mary had discovered it. Truth number 3, prioritize presence over productivity. In that moment, Mary was so aware of what was most important. It wasn't that dinner was served on time. It wasn't that all the chores got done. It was simply to be with Jesus. And I think that's the heart of what Jesus is saying to Martha, but also to us. He isn't condemning her for serving or having things to do or for even a season of being busy, but he's showing her how hurry has pulled her away from him. The issue isn't that she's making dinner. The issue is that her soul is moving too fast to be present with him. You see, hurry always promises to get us somewhere faster. But spiritually, it does just the opposite. It splinters our attention, it shortens our patience, and it keeps us from truly seeing the people and God right in front of us. While Mary chose to sit at Jesus' feet, Martha kept moving. Not because serving was wrong, but because presence mattered more in that moment. What would it look like this week to pause in the middle of your to-do list, to put down your phone, to look someone in the eye and give them your full attention? You can't love well if you aren't truly present. And that's the invitation for us, to live at a pace where we can actually notice him, because you can't walk with Jesus if you're running past him. I'm reminded of 1 Corinthians 13, right? Paul writes some of the most famous words about love in the entire Bible. And we've heard them at weddings, in songs. We see it on that wonderful Hobby Lobby wall art. But what's the very first thing Paul says about love? He says, love is patient. It's not love is efficient. It's not love is productive. It's not love gets everything done on the to-do list in a timely manner. It's love is patient. And I'm not sure if it's possible to be patient and in a hurry at the same time. Because hurry is constantly asking, what's next? How fast can we get there? But love, real Christ-like love, says, I'm here. I'm not going anywhere, and you have my full attention. Think about it. When Jesus walked on this earth, he never rushed through a healing. He never hurried a conversation. He never told a child, not now, I'm too busy. Even on his way to the cross, he stopped for dinner at a friend's house. That's what love looks like. It's interruptible, it's centered, it's present. Parents, I promise you, your children will remember far less about how efficient you were and far more about how present you were. They won't remember if dinner was perfectly on time every evening, but they will remember the moments you literally stopped everything just to listen. They won't remember if the house was always spotless, but they'll remember the times you sat at their bed and you heard and asked about their day. She reminds me of a play called Our Town, and it shows this beautiful picture of exactly this. It says Emily dies giving birth, and she finds herself in the graveyard hanging out with other people from the town who had died before her. There, she learns she's allowed to relive any day of her life that she chooses, though the others advise her not to. She'll find it painful, they say, because the living don't understand. Emily, nevertheless, insists and chooses to relive her 12th birthday. Initially, Emily is overwhelmed by the beauty of everything she sees. I love you all, everything. I can't look at everything hard enough, she exclaims. But she's saddened as she quickly realizes that the living don't see what she sees. Everyone is too caught up in the busyness of their life to really look at one another. In frustration, Emily cries out to her mother at one point. She says, "Oh, Mama, just take 1 minute, as though you really saw me. Mama, 14 years have gone by. Just for a moment now we're together. Mama, just for a moment we're happy. Let's look at one another." Sadly, her mother is too busy to hear her. Before long, Emily can't bear it anymore. "I can't go on," she says. "It goes so fast. We don't have time to look at one another." If we're not intentional, hurry will take over our lives. But here's the good news. Jesus doesn't just point out Martha's hurry, he gently shows her the better way. Mary has chosen what is better, and it will not be taken away from her. That's the invitation for you and me. You don't have to keep living splintered. You don't have to let hurry rule your home, your parenting, your schedule, or your soul. You can choose what is better. Maybe for you, that means slowing down enough to really listen to your child this week. Maybe it's putting your phone down and being present with your spouse for a whole evening. Maybe it's simply sitting at Jesus' feet in the quiet, even when your mind wants to sprint to what's next. Love is patient, and you can't be patient if you're in a hurry. So what if this week, instead of asking, "How much can I get done?" we ask, "How can I be present with God and with the people he's put in front of me?"